All right, thanks, David. Hi, everyone. My name is Lee Hermiston, and I am a reporter with the Gazette. I've been with the Gazette for, 8 years now or so, 8.5. And so I'll be moderating the panel, and I will turn it over to our panelists for an introduction. And so if you guys could all just take a few minutes and tell us a little bit about yourselves and your career in the aviation industry, that'd be great. LeAnn, why don't you get started?
Okay, great. Thanks, Lee. Hey, welcome everybody to the session. Thanks for joining. So my name's LeAnn Ridgeway. I work for Collins Aerospace, which is now Raytheon Technologies. So most of you probably recognize it as one of the top three employers in the state. And so I've worked there now for a little over 30 years and just all the various areas you could work in, from the business units, from the military side to the commercial side to the biz jet side. Currently, I'm leading a business unit out on the East Coast, formerly the ARINC business, now known as Information Management Services. So I'm located out in Annapolis, Maryland. And in addition to my day job there, what I've been doing over the last 8 months is also leading and heading up the task force for Collins Aerospace on the return to safe flight and restoring passenger confidence now during this COVID pandemic and what's going to come next over the ensuing next probably 18 months, I suppose. So happy to be here and looking forward to the session today. So thank you.
All right, thanks, LeAnn. Tim, you want to go next?
Sure. Tim McClung. I'm with the Iowa DOT Aviation Bureau. I've been with the Bureau for 17 years now, right at my 17th year anniversary. So I've been involved in aviation one way or another my entire life. Grew up in the backseat of an airplane flying around with my dad, and been involved on the corporate aircraft side, been involved in aircraft management and running an FBO. So anyway, here at the DOT, I work in several areas. We're a small office, and so we divvy up and we all take several areas of responsibility. My areas fall in everything from looking at air service development in the state to unmanned aircraft registration, and then dealing with legislative and policy issues. So,
all right, welcome, Tim. And Marty?
Yeah, thank you, and welcome everybody, and thank you for the invite for the Iowa Ideas Conference. So Marty Lenz, Airport Director for the Eastern Iowa Airport here, Cedar Rapids, Iowa City. Coming up on my 6th year as the Airport Director. Originally from Minnesota, grew up in the Twin Cities is home. Been in the airport business for over 25 years now. Started out thinking I wanted to be a pilot and rapidly went broke trying to accomplish that objective and changed majors into airport administration. So that's actually my degree is airport administration. I've worked at large hub airports, spent some time at Minneapolis, St. Paul in the airport noise program. Small non-hub airports like Cheyenne, Wyoming, to medium hubs, Tulsa, Oklahoma, Madison, Wisconsin. And so a lot of background in different size airports and a few different states. So that's Marty Lenz.
All right, thanks, Marty. Well, I'd like to start off with maybe a little bit of a snapshot of the aviation industry in Iowa. How many airports do we have? How are they used? What does the aviation industry in Iowa look like in 2020?
well, since I'm with Iowa DOT, I guess maybe I can take this one or start with it. I think whenever you look at aviation in Iowa or any state, you have to realize aviation is broad. There are a lot of different types of aviation activities. Of course, we have commercial air service, one of our more influential activities out there. But we also have cargo. We have military uses. We're doing everything in the state of Iowa, from flying drones overseas to helicopter operations, support operations, to operating fuel tankers off the west coast of Iowa in Sioux City. So business aviation is a fundamental part of aviation in Iowa and supporting the businesses and economic development for our state. A lot of companies use aircraft to move their people, whether they're mechanics or technicians or salespeople or the company executives. We have a lot of good things that come from aviation, helicopter air ambulance. There's a lot of that activity in the state, taking people to tertiary care centers. Public safety uses aircraft for various reasons. Aerial application is a big use, support of the farmers in the state. Every year, we have hundreds of aerial applicators operating in the state, especially late July, first part of August. The second those tassels come on those corn stalks, it's time for the aerial applicators to go to work spraying that fungicide. And then through the season, they'll also be spraying other types of pesticides to protect our crop and help try to increase our the revenue coming into our economy, helping the farmers. We have a lot of specialty services that you don't think about. Everything from inspecting power lines to lifting air conditioners onto large commercial buildings around the state. And then that's not even to mention the kind of the personal travel and recreational side of it. So a lot of folks, we have over 3,000 aircraft and over 5,000 pilots in Iowa. A lot of folks will use aviation for personal travel. And they'll also use it for recreational opportunities. Iowa has quite a bit of skydiving and ballooning activities and things like that. So all of this really drives it's a large economic impact in the state. We've done economic impact studies in the past showing billions of dollars of economic impact in Iowa. One of the interesting things is we can look at the airports and we can look at the industries like Collins Aerospace and the impact that they have on the state. But by far the biggest impact is the benefits to the users, the benefits to the businesses that are out there using aviation to conduct their business day in and day out. So aviation is vital to our economy. So, one of the things that we did in that the last study we did in 2009, asked the largest employers in the state of Iowa, what are some of the key things that you look at in relocating and expanding your businesses? And out of the top 5, airports fell in 2 of those slots. And number 3 was proximity to a commercial service airport, and number 5 was proximity to a good general aviation airport. So aviation is expansive, it's broad, a lot happening in Iowa.
Sure, that's fantastic. Marty, tell us a little bit about the Eastern Iowa Airport and what sort of industries you guys have going on out there and who you serve.
Sure. So we really serve Eastern Iowa. So we represent 3,000 total acres of land. Of that, 2,000 acres are in farm production. So we are one of the largest farmers in Linn County, if not the largest, which is a bit unique. We also sit on top of the watershed for the Cedar River and Iowa River watershed. So environmental stewardship's a core value of ours. We have 5 airlines, Delta, United, American, Frontier, and Allegiant, providing nonstop service to 15 cities. 3 cargo carriers, DHL, FedEx, UPS. UPS is undergoing a significant expansion here at the airport, literally as we speak. Then we also have approximately 126 based aircraft on the field. So that's everything from corporate aircraft to, as Tim mentioned, small recreational aircraft. And that is actually the highest number of based aircraft at a airport in the state of Iowa is right here at CID. So we're very proud of that. GA is an important segment of our business. And we, pre-COVID, we were serving, we had onto a record year in passenger traffic the last 3 years. And certainly 2020 was shaping up to be another record year of we were forecasting just under 1.4 million total passengers. That represents about 30% of all of Iowa's air passenger volumes come through CID, and approximately 50% of all of the state's air cargo volume come through CID. And Tim alluded to the business aspect of airports, and certainly for the communities and quality of life. We also often hear from, hospitals recruiting physicians or medical teams, staff. They want to know about the ability to travel, and from a leisure aspect and quality of life aspect. So there's lots of aspects and importance to the airports and their communities. Truly are an economic driver to the region. So we certainly are proud of that. Work hard to keep expanding that. Certainly, COVID has thrown a wrench into not just aerospace and aviation as a whole, but a lot of companies. So that's a little bit about CID.
Sure, thank you. Well, you mentioned COVID. I think my next question would be, and maybe LeAnn can start, is how has the pandemic impacted you all and your specific organizations?
Yeah, I'll start with that, Lee. From a Collins Aerospace perspective, I think most everybody reading the papers and everything knows that, March hit and we lost 95% immediately of air travel capability went out of the industry. And so, not only was that devastating from a perspective of being a Collins Aerospace employee, right? It's the global economic havoc that it's wreaked, to all of the industries that Tim and Marty have talked about have been significant as well. And so we've done multiple things at Collins Aerospace. So we've had to unfortunately, take some actions to do some belt tightening. Right now, currently, commercial air travel, is back at about, it keeps hanging somewhere between 48 and 50% of what it was prior to COVID hitting. So it has rebounded a little bit, driven mostly by the leisure travelers since COVID. But what we've been doing is we've been focusing across the industrial base to say, what can we do to raise this all up and get passengers confident in flying again? And if you've seen over the last 3 weeks, there's been a lot of media coverage and a lot of effort and information coming out to talk about the safety of the aircraft and the quality of the air on an aircraft, and also what all of the airports are doing, including CID. And so we've spent a lot of time not only working with the medical professionals, with academia. We're partnering with Harvard on a study to show what the efficacy is of all of these initiatives that the industry's putting in place, from mandating masks to how good the quality of the HEPA filtration is on an aircraft. Most people don't appreciate that it's equal to that of a surgical room. I think last week, IATA came out with some statistics that said what they've looked at since COVID began, and with the everybody wearing masks, that your chance of getting COVID on an aircraft is 1 in 27 million. And they said even if 90% of the people didn't report COVID cases, it'd still be 1 in 2.7 million, meaning that you have a better chance getting hit by lightning than getting contracting COVID on an aircraft. So we've been participating in those medical studies, those academic studies. We've also been developing new solutions. So for the airports, we've developed a lot of mobile applications so you don't have to touch a kiosk. We're doing a lot to develop our biometrics. We're including temperature sensing in that, and also multiple biomarker sensing, so that it could, you walk up, you do your biometrics, your facial image now becomes your ticket, it now becomes your passport. You don't have to have that human interaction, that documentation exchange. It also facilitates moving through an airport quicker, so you can theoretically do more social distancing. And then also we're integrating things like multiple biomarkers coming up here that would also add in respiratory, heart rate, stuff like that, can detect more than just a coronavirus, right? It can detect respiratory illnesses. So when we think about coming through the other end of this global pandemic, none of us want to be in the position where our industry overnight can lose 95% of its viability. And so some of the solutions that we're designing and putting into place through not only the aircraft, but also in the airports, should theoretically have us much better prepared if and when a COVID-20 hits. And so a lot of time spent on developing new technologies, touchless lavatories and that on the aircraft, doing things like microbial antiviral surface coatings, things like that, different types of sterilization. So we've been actively at work trying to work across all these constituencies, also working with those associations that represent the airlines and the airports. And then finally, I would say spending a lot of our time with our government relations teams. So in Washington, working at the state and local level, but also working the legislative and the executive branch to do two things: help change some rules and regulations that will make it easier for airports to do things like biometrics, as well as getting funding profiles and using our full lobbying efforts to ensure that airports are getting funding and that the airlines are getting funding that they need to sustain through this COVID pandemic. So a lot going on. I know I threw a lot out there, but we're very vested, as I started out saying, one of the largest employers, in the state of Iowa, to ensuring that aerospace travel and that the industry can get as healthy as quick as it possibly can.
Wonderful. Tim, what do you have to add?
Well, when the pandemic hit, we were off good 95% on people going through our airports. And, it was really a surreal thing to go to an airport and see them empty. We have 8 commercial service airports in Iowa. Like Marty alluded to, Cedar Rapids handles about 30% of that traffic. Des Moines, a little over 60%, and then the rest to the other airports. But all of them were impacted. One of the first things that we did is started pulling our commercial airports together on a regular basis. I think we were meeting every 2 weeks for 2 or 3 months there, just to share and just to hear each other out as to because really it was unprecedented. We just had not seen anything like that ever. So all of the airports have been impacted, some of them in different ways. Luckily, some of our airports are subsidized through the Essential Air Service program, so they've had ways that they can kind of support themselves better. But definitely, it's changed air service. Schedules have changed. We are back to about 40. Here in Iowa, we're showing 40 to 45% of pre-COVID numbers right now. We average about 43,000 passenger boardings every week. But as LeAnn alluded to, it's really just changed the way that people travel. Not only trying to get through the airport in kind of a touchless environment and taking your hand sanitizer with you, but everything from trying to travel with a carry-on bag, doing your very best. And luckily, we have airports that we have great nonstop destination options in the state, and people more than ever trying to take advantage of that, so they can just get on an aircraft where they're going. So, with 15 out of Cedar Rapids, 15 nonstop destinations, that's huge. And people are, I think, probably more than ever trying to take advantage of that. So.
Sure. And Marty, what about specifically at CID? How have you guys been impacted, and how have you been responding to that to, have your customers and clients feel comfortable coming to the airport?
Yeah, so we've certainly, as both Tim and LeAnn have mentioned, our business has been impacted. We're forecasting roughly by the end of our fiscal year here, July 1st, we should be down about $10 million in revenue. So significant hit for our operation, about 50% loss. So that's not unique for airports, but I think, I look at it like there's 2 ways to approach this. And I've always kind of operated under a motto of crisis is the mother of invention. And I think, the technology that Collins and the airport space is talking about, the touchless technology that they've developed, is fantastic. We need to get that deployed in the aviation space. We quickly had implemented a pretty robust survey of our region using Vernon Research Group to really get a pulse on what people needed to see in order to feel comfortable to travel again. And that survey data told us a number of things, one of which, a lot of it was hand sanitizer. They wanted to see the cleaning techniques that were being used. We've done all that. We've invested in the electrostatic sprayers that you hear about. So that's deployed throughout our terminal, cleaning the high touch points more frequently, like escalator rails, elevator buttons, things like that. But, kudos to the Eastern Iowa Airport Commission. They took the first step in the state of mandating masks within the terminal environment, and they went even further and had public hearings. We took the step of mandating travel well program, a health screening requirement before you would enter the sterile area. To my knowledge, there's nobody that's done that. We're still in conversations with FAA headquarters to approve the use of airport funds in order to screen passengers through the checkpoint. So it'd be outbound passengers would go through a series of a primary health screening and a secondary health screening should somebody require a second check, which is a very unique system. It's out on our website at flycid.com. As of now, the airport, we're not able to use CARES funds or CARES Act grant. We were looking to use approximately 3% of it to fund the program. We haven't been able to do that quite yet, nor can we use other airport revenue, such as parking, to set that program up. We had partnered with Mercy Medical Center to do the health screening because you hear a lot about HIPAA and concerns about health screening and who should do it. Should TSA screeners do it? Should gate agents do it? Our philosophy was medical professionals should be doing health screening. And so kudos to Mercy Medical Center. They dove in on this idea that we had been kicking around in our office and really helped us generate just a fantastic program. And again, we've had positive conversations with the FAA to try to get this approved to use airport funds to stand this up. We hope to have an answer prior to hopefully next week so that we can get it stood up and operating before the holiday rush. And I think there's opportunities there to deploy different technologies to keep people safe. We're now hearing about, United CEO Kirby spoke today that said we need to deploy more rapid COVID testing at airports to help restore the confidence in air travel. And that's coming from the CEO of an airline. Our product allows us to implement that in real time with no impact to throughput and really provide a much safer, more confident experience for the traveler. That came out of our surveys. Our customers said that's what they want to see. So we're trying to deliver that. I'm still optimistic that we'll get that approved and we'll be out of the gate, if you will, here in another week or two. But still waiting. So those of you that would like to call our congressional delegation and weigh in and help us with that, I would appreciate it. But it is a bit, philosophically, I just got my hair cut today, and I have a more health screening going on to get my hair cut than I do going into an airplane right now. Good news is air travel is incredibly safe. There's new data out there, a recent study that, in fact, I just closed it, but there was a study that it's essentially the chances of anybody catching COVID through air travel is as close to zero as you possibly can get. The study was just released today. So it's incredibly safe, but we need to be innovative. This isn't the last time we're going to see a pandemic. Unfortunately, the aviation industry as a whole, in my opinion, doesn't do new very well, and for good reason. We're heavily regulated. We need to have a hyper safe system, and we do. And so we have to be very mindful when new things come in to the industry that we fully vet those. So, I think it's completely appropriate that the industry move to new things a little bit slow. There is a runway to recovery document that 3 federal agencies came out together on July 2nd that really advocated, creativity, entrepreneurship, if you will, in the aviation space, and wanted to see new ideas come to light. And some of that discussion in that document is health screening. And so the technologies that Collins is trying to get out there into the marketplace with their airport group is right in line with that guidance document. I think our product here at CID, to stand up a travel well program and provide health screening, absolutely what the customers want to see. United CEO just commented they want to see it. So I'm hopeful the FAA will give us that green light here next week. We'll stand that up, and certainly welcome all of the industry to take a look at what we're trying to do here. I think it's the benefit of an airport like CID and a product like that is it's very scalable. It's a solution not for a Chicago or a Minneapolis, but it may in fact be a solution for many airports our size. So anyway, that's long, windy answer and with a soft plug for Travel Well, but that's what's going on at CID.
If I could expand on that to support just a little bit farther, is couple of things. The study he's talking about was released by Transcom. So the US DoD did a study with DARPA. I think they used United too, but it really was how safe is it going to be for us to move our troops and the troops' families, right? So very independent study. And to Marty's point, I think, they're saying it's negligible. It's like 0.003 chance. But I think where we are as an industry is exactly what Marty's talking about is we've done all the study and the scientific stuff that we can do possibly to say really certainly on board an aircraft, and we continue to find new technologies to support the airports to get them up, even higher in their level of safety on that. And Marty, we have heard preliminarily, at least from our government relations team, that right now, as it stands for the new funding, they're going to allow airports to use for biometrics and medical. So we're hopeful that stays through all the political back and forth by the time that gets released. So we're right there with you trying to plug that kind of language to get help for our products and for the Cedar Rapids Airport too. And what I would say is what we're all focusing now on what Marty's trying to do. And if you've heard in the news anybody talk about now air bridges or air bubbles, what they're trying to say is, okay, we've got leisure travelers certainly back traveling, still need to get business travelers back traveling. But if you think about what now, if everybody's comfortable with the protocols and the efficacy of the safety of flying in an aircraft and going through an airport, what's limiting people? And it really is, what if you're coming out of a hot spot and you're going to a place, you don't want to get there and then have to be quarantined for 14 days. And so they're coming up with these, they're calling them air bridges, air bubbles, different words, but they're basically saying, how do you ensure that with a better sense of security that nobody is gotten on that aircraft and it's as pure as can be, so that when they land, people can avoid those 14-day quarantines. So taking away yet another barrier, and by doing the health screening that Marty's talking about, they're starting to explore that. And I think we've read in the paper recently, New York and London are going to try to open up an air bridge between the two before the holiday season to ensure that either through some sort of screening, rapid testing, that you can say, hey, the folks on this aircraft are clean. So they get there, they don't have to spend the 14 days, they can go to their family, whatever. So I think we're finally progressing as an industry through all the science that we can prove it's there. Now we got to work across inter-region and globes to make sure the regulators are allowing that free movement, provided we can show and demonstrate again with the science that it's safe.
And so is this pandemic, I guess what you would say a watershed moment in the aviation industry? Is it, assuming we get a cure or a vaccine sometime in the next 6 months, 18 months, what have you, is there any going back from some of these new measures that we've put in, or Is it sort of like the TSA experience after 9/11, where this is the way it is now, and that's what all travelers should expect going forward?
Well, I guess I'll jump in because I'm kind of shy. I would say it's kind of a cliche of the new normal, but I think that's pretty true. I think like our travel well concept, it's a modular concept. Should the national health emergency be rescinded, we can take it down, put it into storage, but we have learned a lot to be able to deploy that again should we need to in the future. So all of that mobility to that program is built into this. When it comes to elevated cleaning, that's here to stay. I think elevated cleaning with the airlines as well is here to stay. I think a lot of those elements are good. I think you'll see more emphasis on that touchless experience all the way through the system. I joke with a lot of presentations like Rotary, all you really need to do to get through the system is a backpack and your iPhone, and you don't have to go to the ticket counter. You got your ticket, you just hold it. There's very little touching with anyone even now. I think there'll be more of that. I think there'll be an element of health check, if you will, inlaid into this technology. I think that is something personally I think you're going to see stay. I do also believe, a lot of our corporate clients, Collins is a big flyer, so through our airport, many companies, you'll hear about, this type of technology that we're on today with social, Zoom or whatever platform you're using. I think that'll slow the business return to the economy or back to flying, but I think ultimately we'll get back to flying because business is a personal engagement, and I think when you're particularly dealing with new business clients, suppliers, you need that personal relationship that really is at the heart of what business is about, is that personal relationship. I think maybe some intra-office stuff where, going to your other sites within your own company may change a little bit, but I think that'll eventually, I personally believe that'll come back. I think a lot of people are reaching that fatigue with the Zoom, in my opinion, and I think it's just going to be a slow recovery. But many of these things we've instituted are here to stay for sure.
So, outside of the new technologies and innovations related to the pandemic, generally speaking, what are some of the new innovations, creations, technologies that have happened in the aviation industry in the last few years, and what might be coming down the pike sooner rather than later? And I think, Tim, you had maybe mentioned unmanned flights, and so I want to start with you and just what's new, what's out there, what should folks be expecting to see in the next few years?
Well, it's a whole new industry that's out there. Right now, unmanned aircraft systems, the growth behind those is phenomenal. So far, as of today, we have 500,000 commercially licensed unmanned aircraft out in the market in the United States, with 200,000 licensed pilots. Here in Iowa, we have, I think, 5,400 regular manned aircraft pilots. We're already well over 2,000 commercially licensed unmanned aircraft pilots. So right now, most of the focus is on small unmanned aircraft systems under 55 pounds. I think with time, you will start to see larger aircraft. For right now, the FAA has developed some regulatory framework that allows people to get in the business commercially in that small category. But I think we'll see growth into the larger market as time goes on. And right now, the unmanned aircraft world is somewhat limited because everything has to be done with, unless there's special research or waivers in place, everything has to be done within visual line of sight. But when we move to the beyond visual line of sight world, things are really going to change. We're going to be starting to talk about needing a whole rework of airspace systems and just new capabilities that will, everything from package delivery to first responders to just whatever you can dream up that could happen. But there's a lot of innovation, a lot of research happening right now in that unmanned aircraft world. Right now there's a lot of real estate work, photography, video. One of the growing areas is in using the unmanned aircraft for aerial survey work. And so it's just, the list goes on and the types of activities you can do with these unmanned aircraft. I know even within government, we're using them at the DOT to inspect construction zones, to do quality inspections on construction sites, to inspect lighting towers, airports, you name it, tons of activities. So they're being used in the public safety realm. So I think it's an area that we're going to continue to see growth in. I think that the technology that is being developed right now in the unmanned aircraft world, all signs point to the fact that could potentially create tremendous innovations in the rest of aviation, everything from the way aircraft are designed to converting to electric propulsion to the way our airspace system works. So a lot of exciting things happening in that world right now. And, as things move on, it's going to open up the possibility of autonomous aircraft flights. Now, I don't think that's going to be happening mainstream anytime soon, but the technology or the ability to do that is certainly going to be coming along. So,
sure. LeAnn, what is Collins working on that's going to change the industry? What should we be excited about?
Well, I'd say we're working on three main threads that have a variety of, in the future from a near term to a longer term. And one of them, what Tim just talked about, autonomous flight, is really big. And whether it be completely autonomous or even the ability to have flight control computers, and that will reduce the amount of pilots on a long haul that maybe are needed. So maybe you go from four down to three, to be able to reduce that. So technologies that are going to certainly do that. Also, we're looking along more electric. So everybody's very concerned around the carbon footprint and what we can do there to certainly be more electric. And then I'd say the third thread that kind of weaves throughout everything that we do nowadays is how are we going to do more connectivity and have everything digitally connected, so that just like our homes now are being filled with smart products, getting the aircraft and the airports full of smart products and taking that data, and what can we do to either help the airports, the airlines reduce cost or help them differentiate for their passenger experience and make their passenger experience more enjoyable. So those are maybe the three main macro level threads of stuff on the horizon that we're focused on.
Sure. And Marty, what about at the airport level? 5 years from now, what are commercial and business flyers going to be seeing that's different? How is that airport experience going to change?
Well, I think it really is a lot of what we've talked about, and that's that touchless experience. I think you're going to see that. I think that's really, I would say, the driver. I think you're going to see some changes potentially just with the aircraft as they're talking about, the technology coming into airplanes themselves on a greater level. And the ability at a small airport like us to really personalize that service experience, I think is a game changer. And we're working on those type of things. So I think you're also, I mean, this maybe not directly related to your question here, but maybe more of a watershed to the previous question that you raised, Lee. And that's, the one thing we've heard from the carriers is, they're going to be smaller when they come out of this COVID. So the pressure on small community air service has never been greater to maintain it. We talked earlier about the importance of air service, top 3 issue for business, retention, recruitment, and growth. It's the top 3 are workforce is number 1. Number 2 is taxes. Number 3 is commercial airport. And, Delta has announced, previously there was 15, 16 cities that had suspended Delta service. American had a number of cities as well. Some of those cities were impacted here in Iowa. So I think where I'm going with all this is how small communities connect to the air service grid, if you will, may look differently, and I think will look differently in the future. And I think that the winners in that process are those communities and regions that can come together and identify options that may not be traditional options to connect a community are going to be key. And I think those things and changes for the aviation industry are coming at us rapidly. And I think it comes down to, what communities, what business communities, how are we responding to that? And how do we want to respond to that? Do we want to get in sync with what the market forces are with the carriers and be in sync with what they envision their portfolio of service is going to look like? Or, are we going to kind of swim counter to it? And I would call that kind of that pushing the sand uphill makes it a lot more difficult. But I think we have to look at things a lot differently. I think Iowa as a whole, I think we have to collectively be laser focused on keeping all of our air travelers in the state of Iowa using the state of Iowa's system of airports so that we don't leak our travel dollars to a neighboring state. That is something that is of utmost importance, because when we invest in ourselves as members of this community, it's no different than shop local. It really isn't. But when we're investing in ourselves, then our infrastructure is better, stronger, healthier, and it helps us on the economy, like we talked about. It's all very much a fragile ecosystem right now. And I think our response during this crisis and how we manage through it is going to be absolutely paramount. And the discussions aren't easy. There's some hard discussions to have, but we have to have them. So kind of back to the watershed, I think there's more change coming, not just for Iowa, but I think for, small community air service across the country.
Sure. Okay, well, we've got about 15 minutes left. I want to remind everyone that's monitoring that you are welcome to submit questions. Switching gears a little bit, how far are we away from, Amazon dropping off my packages via drone? Is that something we're going to see sometime in our lifetimes, or sooner than that?
Well, I think it's right around the corner, personally. The FAA is making a lot of work and progress. I know Tim talked a lot about drones, and he's close to it. But I think that last kind of mile of delivery, or whatever you call it, I think the there's test cases going on of that happening now. So I think, I don't think that that's that far away. Particularly the smaller parcels, the parcels 5 pounds or under, I think completely manageable today to be doing it. So, yeah, I think that presents an opportunity for airports too. We have air cargo carriers right here. How are we engaging in bringing traditional aviation and unmanned aviation into one seamless system? I think is some real potential opportunities for airport to think differently in that space, but that's my 2 cents.
Well, Tim, want to weigh in on that?
Sure. The ability to do it is there today, no doubt about it. There are some case situations where it is happening. The issue is that once you launch an aircraft, the FAA says higher than a blade of grass, you're now in the national airspace system and you're integrating with manned aircraft that are out there. And so that's a lot of the work that's happening right now, is figuring out not only what's going to happen with the ability to put remote ID or put some kind of systems in place on these unmanned aircraft that will be able to identify them and show them in the airspace. And there's going to be rules of the road on how to operate and keep the manned aircraft and unmanned aircraft working together in the airspace system. So once that comes along, which is still honestly a ways off. I mean, the capability is there to deliver packages today, and it's happening today. But as far as broad implementation of it, I think we're a little ways off until they get that airspace system and the remote ID rule. There's what they call the remote ID rule that they're working on right now. Until they get that fully implemented and researched and get the system figured out, it's probably going to be it's probably not going to happen up and down every block within the city anytime soon. So,
okay. Well, I don't see a whole any questions from the audience. So what I would like to do is maybe give you guys a couple minutes each to offer us some parting thoughts, whatever you would like folks to sort of walk away from this panel with. So LeAnn, would you like to start?
Sure. I would just kind of summarize by some of my threads throughout is that, travel is a personal choice. We understand that, but as you start to look at the science and you look at the facts, we believe here in the industry that we spend a lot of time and effort with good science and good medical providers to show that it is in fact safe, much safer than most of your everyday activities. If you compare health quality of the air and that to going to a supermarket, even being at your work building and things like that. So as you're looking and if you're a little bit nervous on what to expect, which tends to hold some people back, know that, the rules of the road are now you can take your larger quantities of your hand sanitizer through. The process for the most part is the same you're doing in life now. Wear your mask, maintain social distancing best you can. And as you go through the experience on the aircraft, actually, as the numbers are down, it's the experience everybody wished it usually is pre-COVID. It's very pleasant travel experience. Everybody's very respectful. The travel's great. The industry has been fantastic. There's virtually no lines at any point going through even your TSA security checkpoints as we have numbers today. So it really is a very pleasant, very safe flying experience. So I just leave everybody out there as you're looking forward to thinking about should you make those holiday travel plans and stuff. I would point you to the IATA, and that's IATA website for some recent facts. Look today in the news, you're going to see that Transcom DoD study come out. Look up the Harvard public health studies that they've been doing about the quality in that. And so if you read that and you understand, I think it'll really help you feel a little more at ease and know that the things that are being done right here at home and what Marty and his team and the airport authorities have done have been phenomenal. So everybody's wanting to ensure people we're really leaning forward in the industry to do everything we can on our part to make it safe. So Educate yourself, tell your family, tell your friends. But I think we've learned a lot over these last 6 months, and we can assure you a great experience if you're traveling.
Great. Tim?
Probably pretty much along the same lines. One of the things that we're still learning. Luckily, the evidence is suggesting that we have not had any of these super spreader events, and so that's great news. I think everybody needs to keep in mind that our airports are open, the airlines are operating. If they don't have a need for that, general aviation is still out there, flight training is happening, charter is happening. The whole world of aviation is up and going. And there's some good news in it, not only the travel conveniences that LeAnn was talking about, but also there's some pretty competitive and attractive airfares out there right now, because there's a lot of juggling that's starting to happen with the airlines and the airports like Marty. They're trying to position themselves so they come out of this strong. And there's competition out there right now, and there's some attractive airfares. So get out there, try to take advantage of that. The travel experience has definitely changed, no doubt about that. But it's just like anything else. You just learn it, and that's the new normal. So, and I think one thing that's really, really important for every community or for everybody out there to realize, the airport that they use, the airport that they need to rely on, if that demand goes away and it's not used, then guess what? The air service is going to go away. The airlines are not going to just sit there and continue to provide air service at a loss. So it really is imperative that at some point we get these airliners back up and going. So hopefully we'll have good news in the months ahead in terms of vaccines and hospital rates and all these metrics that are measured. But use the airports. They're there. They're open. So.
All right. Marty, what's the final word?
Well, I guess I'd echo, there's some really good airfares out there, and you truly can travel safe. I would just echo all of that. I would also just add, for those that, if you have questions and you're not kind of finding the answer to your question, whether that's on an airport's website or our website or out there on any of the Google searches you can do, by all means, just pick up the phone and call us here and at CID, and we'll certainly help guide you through those questions and try to answer them as best we can, because we get it. It's people have concerns right now, and we want to help alleviate those concerns and have people feel comfortable about getting back. It's very safe to do so, but pick up the phone. Airfares, there's lots of good airfares out there. And if you mask up and, just essentially keep, wash your hands. I mean, it seems a little bit basic when we say it, but there's just a lot of truth to it. You'll be fine. And so, in fact, I'm heading out next week to Arizona myself, so for a little vacation. So get out there, move about the country, and that there's some good holiday airfares out there. So and by all means, call us if we can help alleviate any questions for you.
All right. Well, thank you all very much for participating. This has been extremely informative, and I'm sure the audience enjoyed it as well. Thank you very much for your time.
Thank you.
Really.
All right.
Have a good afternoon.
You too. Thank you. Bye-bye.
Bye-bye.
Bye all.